Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/EntitledPeople Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen stops me mid-workout and demands to use the squat rack. After that, boss did me wrong, so I put him out of business. And after that, my roommate fails at adulthood. Her parents expect me to take care of her. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to use the squat rack. Bruh, I'm trying to get these gains though. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen stops me mid-workout and demands to use the squat rack. This is becoming more and more common at the surrounding gyms, which is really annoying and a reason I've changed gyms more than once this year alone. Working out is a pillar of my everyday life, and it has been for the past 10 years, and I'm at the gym every day of the week. Now, I don't go to the gym to talk to people, make friends, or make funny videos. I go to train and go home. However, now with the new video trends, many folks want to record their exercises to post on social media. This is their business and not mine. They can do whatever they want, but I also don't think I need to stop doing my own workout to accommodate them. Last night I was doing squats on the Smith machine. I work out with headphones and I didn't notice that someone was trying to get my attention. I suddenly felt a tap on my shoulder mid-squat, and only then I noticed a woman with a very annoyed expression. She barely allowed me to finish the movement to start talking, which was muffled due to headphones. Long story short, she was annoyed because I was training on the Smith machine and she wanted to record herself doing regular squats. However, she said the best spot was in front of that Smith machine. There's more than one, and she didn't want me on the frame, so she wanted me to stop my series for her to record. Now, usually if someone comes to me with a good attitude and asks if it's okay for me to stop for a series or two for them to record or even move machines, I would absolutely not mind and comply. This lady did nothing of the sort, being extremely arrogant and honestly extremely annoying. So I was petty and I told her to record once I was done, and I proceeded to do every single exercise I could on the same Smith machine. Squats, Smith. Hip thrust, Smith. It was petty, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I felt very vindicated seeing her annoying expression. That being said, a few people said I was a jerk for doing that, as there were other machines I could have used. Honestly, they might be right, but hey, I thought I'd ask the internet. Was I too much of a jerk here? Not the jerk. First off, who interrupts someone mid-squat? A lot of gyms have a no recording policy where I live. In my last gym, these people just got reported to the fitness manager. Not the jerk. For all those people trying to film themselves in a public place, get over yourselves. We don't care about your 1,327 followers seeing your gains. Stop disrupting public space with your ego. Well, what would you have done in this situation? Would you have gone ahead and moved for her or not? Please let us know. I would have started coughing all over her. It's one of the quickest ways to get people to stop messing with you, especially these days. Boss did me wrong, so I put him out of business. This happened 12 years ago, and I'm still reaping my rewards. I worked for the company. They did 3-phase photography of families and their kids. No wedding events or anything like that. Straight studio work that was in a portable setting. Sittings booked for 10 minutes, and we were supposed to shoot 30 to 50 a day. Yes, it is as wretched of a job as it sounds. It was fast, high energy, and at times simply brutal. 1. Pre-seller. They come in 2 to 3 weeks in advance and sell a special 10x13 portrait and book the appointment. 2. The photographer. That's me in this instance. Comes in for about a week and takes the pictures. 3. The salesperson returns 2 weeks later with the special along with the other 6 poses I took and tries to sell you $400 worth of pictures. I was very good at what I did. The company sales average was $100 per customer per 50 customers. The more you shoot, the lower your quality, because you spend less time taking care of details, and details sell pictures. My average was 175-ish per 150 to 200 customers. I was making this company a lot of money, and they consistently treated me like crap. Oh, the stories. Their business model was shoot as many sittings as you can, as fast as you can. To them, shooting 50 with a $100 average was better than shooting 35 with a $150 average, even though the profit margin was exactly the same. I never agreed with that, and boss and I went around and around about it every week. They withheld raises because I didn't have enough sittings and took my bonuses because I wasn't meeting their quotas. So I figured out how to be fast, efficient, and darn good. That's another post. So that's the background. Now the good stuff. Enter the jerk. The jerk is a pre-seller who lied to the customers, lied to the store, and would book appointments from 9 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. even though the studio hours were 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. He told every lie in the book, and I think he even added a few of his own. Want to bring your dog? Family of 15? Sure. Bring 5 change of clothes and we'll even have her do your makeup. I don't even do my own makeup. Come and get your picture taken and we will throw in a free toaster. And just to make it interesting, he would triple and quadruple book appointments, and when he ran out of those, he would sell open appointments and tell people to just come in anytime and my photographer will work with you. Ugh, just writing that makes me mad even after all these years. The biggest problem is he would waive the sitting fee or just not tell them. I was obligated to collect that $8. Every time I didn't, it came out of my check. It was a nightmare. I refused to work behind the jerk for these and 1,000 other reasons. I told boss that if they ever put me behind the jerk again, I would quit, which is exactly what happened. They knew he had been working at the store I was assigned, and they lied about it. I immediately called boss and told him this was my last week and that he needed to make arrangements to get the photography equipment at the end of the shoot. I should have walked out, but I was young and dumb. It was a 3-day shoot, and I did 316 customers by myself. That is an insane amount of sittings, and nobody was happy. Every night, the store manager had to tell my customers to leave because the store was closed. People were lined up at 9 a.m. waiting for me. I took so much mistreatment that week. After a customer threw a shoe at me and another spit on my pizza, the store security guard brought a chair over and stayed with me almost the entire time I was there. I honestly cannot remember how many people were escorted out of the store because they acted a fool in my studio. It's been over a decade and I still have nightmares about that week. But nobody came to get the equipment, so I start making phone calls and plotting. Me. Hey, what do you want me to do with your equipment? Boss. You're going to need it next week in Florida. Me. No, because I quit. Boss. You didn't give me any notice, so I'm not accepting your resignation. I'm sending you to Florida next week. Me. I'm an independent contractor, remember? You can't make me go to Florida. This is not complicated. I quit. Boss. Just go to Florida. I don't have time for this now. You can quit in 3 weeks if you can hire a replacement. And he hangs up. Nope, not going to Florida. I packed the equipment and took it home with me. The camera was a brand new Canon T2i 550D, and those were pricey back in 2010. I really didn't want to give it back, but it wasn't mine to keep. I had an idea. Boss was an absolute train wreck of a human. If he didn't want to do something, he wouldn't. If he could find someone else to do it, he would. I decided to use his own worst traits against him: avoidance and procrastination. The next thing I did was take the company credit card and go to the nearest storage unit with climate control. I rented a unit and paid for the first month, but just one. I unloaded it all, down to the last halogen light bulb. I took detailed pictures of everything and an inventory. I locked the door and walked away. At this point, there was nothing I could do but wait and hope boss would continue to be the worthless wreck I knew him to be. Next, I called and reported the card stolen. Why? Because I knew if I didn't, that card would remain active and rent would be paid every month on time, and that just wasn't going to work for me. I cut it in half and sent it and the combination to the storage locker to boss via FedEx, along with a hand-painted sign that said, "I quit." I also sent an email to HR telling them that I was terminating my contract and that boss had the information and the equipment. This is probably the only sketchy thing I did. The person I emailed was out on medical leave and I knew it. I could have sent that email to a dozen other people who worked there, but they might have paid attention to it. By the time she got back to the office, she had so many emails she couldn't even begin to tackle them all. A month goes by and the police knock on my door. Okay, so I wasn't expecting that. The company has reported the equipment stolen and the police are there to investigate. I really thought I was going to jail. The cop that knocked on the door was fully expecting to take me away in handcuffs until I explained what was going on. I ended up taking copies of the emails to the police department as well as my copy of the contract with the storage unit. I also had a copy of the shipping label. Both my name and the company were listed on the contract. I had to make an official statement and jump through some hoops. The company had placed a monetary value of $12,000 on the studio rig, so potentially I was in a lot of trouble. Except I covered myself. The police told me I was in the clear because the storage unit had their name on the contract, their credit card was used to pay for it, and I had sent the combination and all the pertinent information to the company. I am very good at cover yourself with paper. At this point, I figure the gig is up because surely they're going to come to get this rig or send someone or something. Nope, boss is still worthless. 2 more months go by. I get a call from the storage facility. They're about to cut the lock and auction the contents. I was so excited. I called boss again. He dodged my calls and ignored my emails to please call me immediately. I never specifically stated what I wanted to talk to him about, and just like I was hoping he would, he ignored me. Okie dokie, I have done all that I can. And that's when it all started to come together. And then I hit a pretty good snag, but it actually worked out better in the end. In this state, if a storage unit goes up for sale, the owner cannot purchase it at auction. I didn't know that. But where there is a will, there is a way. They sent letters and called 3 more times, and then the date was set. The unit went up for auction on my birthday. My neighbor went to the sale. He bought the unit for $125. I couldn't believe it. And of course, we were in cahoots on this, but we had to make it look like we weren't. The grip on the camera mounts cost more than that, not to mention the lighting, props, and costumes, and of course, the camera. My neighbor then put an ad in the local newspaper for photography stuff, $1,000 firm, but didn't list anything specific, and oops, put the wrong number in the ad. A week later, he wanted it out of his garage, so he sold it to me for $126. He has a bill of sale from the auction. I have a bill of sale from him. It's now mine, and there's nothing the company can do about it. But they tried. I now have a fully functional photography studio, all the contacts I need to start my own business, and the skills to do it. I started calling all the stores I had worked for the last 8 years and offered them a much better deal than what the company was giving them. I did my own pre-selling, my own photography, and my own sales, except I took it a step farther. I bought a monitor and computer and let people preview their pictures and order the day of the shoot. They paid in full, and I mailed the pictures directly to them. People loved it. No high-pressure sales, no tricks. My customers were happy, and so were my stores. About 6 months after my first independent shoot, I hear from the company. I got several nasty letters from them, which I ignored. Word had gotten back to them that I was using their equipment and that I was working for someone else. I just laughed at them. They thought so little of me that it never occurred to them that it was my business. Then I got a nasty legal letter from a lawyer. It started with cease and desist, rolled into me violating the non-competitors agreement, and ended with the return of their stolen property. They had apparently not told him all of the facts. I sent him copies of everything. I waited a few weeks for a response from him and heard nothing. I finally called to find out what was going on, but no one was available to take my call. How convenient. A few days later, I got a certified letter in the mail saying, "No other legal action will be forthcoming from this office." I would have been content to just let it slide, but this whole thing ticked me off, and now I wanted revenge. I made a real effort to really get them. Little by little, I built my business and my reputation. I didn't have to do any of the nasty tricks that the jerk did. Within a year, I had stores and schools calling me. I had more work than I could handle on my own, so I took on a second photographer and a third. I actually hired 4 people out from under their noses. At the height of my business, I had 8 additional photographers and a full-time office assistant. I could have grown much larger, and in hindsight, I'm so glad I didn't. Digital photography was a huge boom to the industry, and then it backfired. I found my niche in the market just as it exploded. I ran the company completely out of 3 states. They lost all of their chain contracts to me, including the store where it all started. The jerk lost all of his stores and ended up working at a gas station. The boss ended up demoted because his district was dissolved when I sniped the contracts. The jerk actually tried to convince one of my photographers to hire him to do the pre-selling for her. By now, my name and my business name had a really good reputation. Boss left the company for good and used me as a personal reference. He was a good photographer, just a rotten manager. And I took great joy in telling the people who called me that I was legally not allowed to tell them what I thought of the man. The age of the cell phone camera pretty much destroyed traditional photography, and I closed my doors as a business in late 2017. The company closed for good in 2016, and I would like to think I had a hand in that. I'm still standing, and they are nothing but an empty building. I still have the original rig, but the camera has been replaced several times. I do senior pictures and the occasional venue shoot. Most of my photography is for restaurant menus now. People ask me if that's boring. I've never had a meatball scream, cry, or kick me, which is pretty much a daily occurrence when you work with kids. This may not be as epic as some on here, but I beat them at their own game, and that still feels pretty darn good. My roommate fails at adulthood. Her parents expect me to take care of her. I'm 23, female. My roommate is 22, but failed at basic adulting because her parents failed their job. She presents herself as the cute, kind, understanding, and innocent girl when she's with people. I was fooled by this too. It's why I agreed to be her roommate, because I thought she was a nice person. But she's a failure at basic adulthood. We became roommates a few months ago, and I can't wait to move out next month. At first, everything was normal, then it got bad. She fails at basic cleaning. She let her pet starve and live in its own filth. I think she should be reported because the animal would have starved if I hadn't been feeding it. She made the house dirty, hair everywhere, mess in the kitchen, the weird smell from her room, and I've been doing all of the cleaning. She only cleans when I get really upset and tell her to clean up. And I really hate how she always pulls the innocent thing whenever I tell her your bad hygiene has damaged our living conditions. A few days ago, she caused a little drama in our school because she disappeared for 2 days straight. She didn't respond to anyone's calls or texts. People thought that she had went missing. I panicked too because the area we live in isn't very safe. I really don't like her, but still, I don't want anything bad to happen to her. Eventually, yesterday, she returned home looking normal and said she went over to a friend's place. Her parents panicked and somehow got my number. I told them she has returned home safely. They told me they believe their daughter is now depressed or something. There's no diagnosis though. She has stopped going to school all of a sudden, refuses to talk to them, they couldn't hear from her for days, etc. I was weirded out because I didn't notice she actually had dropped out. I told them she had returned home safely, but they wouldn't calm down. Now the annoying part begins. We are in another country for college, so we are both very far from home. I understand that they worry about their kids' safety. My parents worry about me too. Therefore, I always text them to let them know what I'm doing and that I'm safe. But my roommate's parents? I can see why she became distant from them. Ever since her mom got my number, she constantly rants about how they think their daughter is depressed and requires help. Her daughter wouldn't talk to her. She's heartbroken and desperately wants to know how her daughter is doing. She talked about how they were very protective and strict about parenting when she grew up. No wonder she fails at basic adulthood. They didn't teach her anything. Because her daughter once left the house for 2 days and didn't contact anyone, she now believes that her daughter is never home. Ever since she got home, her mom has texted me 4 times from 10 p.m. to 8 a.m. asking me if her kid is at home, and I say yes she is, but she wouldn't believe me and just kept talking. She even asks me if my roommate would pretend to be home but is actually out. I told her that's impossible because our bedrooms are connected and I can hear if she's home or not. She just kept talking about how her daughter is so weak and helpless and she needs help. I can tell they definitely spoiled her. She asked me how far is our apartment from our campus. I said it's 20-minute walk and 10-minute bus ride. She thinks this is too far away from the school. She thinks a 10-minute bus ride or a 20-minute walk is too much work for her kid. I've stopped responding to her texts because it's annoying. They even tried to pay me $100 to take care of her, like take her out to dinner or something like that, but I politely refused. Because why the heck should I do that? Why is your daughter's messy life my responsibility? After I politely said no, the mother said she needs our address because she's going to come to the country and move in with her daughter. Then she's going to take her daughter home. Oh my goodness, lady, you really need to calm down. Of course, I said no to her. She said she wished I could sympathize with a heartbroken, lonely mother. For goodness sake, I have my own life, lady. I understand your situation, but really, I'm not your daughter's babysitter. After her parents realized I don't give a hoot, they tried to get our address from my other friends. Some of the parents in our school, those parents whose kids are all from our country, have this group chat and a chatting app so they can know about how their kids are doing at school. I honestly think this is so unnecessary because most of us are at least 19. How come a 19-year-old needs your daily checkups? But after witnessing my 22-year-old roommate fail at basic adulthood, I started to understand why these parents have such a group chat. Her parents found the number of a friend of mine from this group chat and started texting her. They asked her, "Where do I live?" Thank goodness my friend didn't tell them. She let me know about their actions instead. She was asking what was going on with all of this. Here's what happened after they couldn't get my information from my friend. My friend politely told them she can't help them, and I ignored their text for a day. Then I told them politely to stop contacting me and that I'm not going to let them live with me. Her mom replied, saying they had finally convinced their daughter to come home, so they're not going to bother me again. Thank goodness. I'm completely fine with it if her parents just want to quickly stop by our place and take her home, but when they first mentioned this, they meant to live with us, not quickly stop by and take her home. They know their daughter isn't willing to come home, so her mother thought it would be a good idea for her to come live with us. I absolutely do not want to be forced to live with some random old lady who I know nothing of, who has a completely different lifestyle and schedule. I don't think I'm being cold or selfish by doing this. After all, I am paying half of everything for the apartment, and it says in the lease, you can't just bring someone else to live in the house without an agreement. Am I the jerk for telling my dad cheating is what got us here, not my mom? My parents divorced when I was 7 after my mom found out Dad had been cheating on her for 5 years with someone she considered to be her friend. The reveal of the affair came during my birthday party, which we celebrated late because Dad made up some story about an old friend passing and had to go to the funeral when he was actually with her for an ultrasound after learning that she was pregnant. My mom never got over what he did to her. I think what made it worse is 2 people betrayed her instead of 1, because if our friends are willing to hurt us like this, then we're done for. My dad married his affair partner. They have 6 kids together now. My mom has stayed away from them as much as humanly possible. She told me a long time ago that she loved me, wanted me to be happy and loved, and not to be distant from them for her, but that she would never be able to play happy families with my dad and his wife and their kids because some hurts are too deep and painful to move on from. When stay-in-place was ordered, things between my mom and dad deteriorated after my dad asked if my mom would take his other 6 kids into her home so the siblings could see each other, since both he and his wife were frontline workers and had planned to send them somewhere to limit their exposure. Mom said no way. She was upset at Dad for even asking, while Dad was upset with her that she didn't force me to go to his in-laws to spend time with my siblings while we weren't legally allowed to meet up with others. Things are the same now. Only my mom suffered less financially through the lockdown. After a while, my dad and his wife left their jobs when it got too much, and their financial stability took a huge hit. My dad can't afford to throw a graduation party for me, which is fine, but he and his family are not welcome to the one my mom is hosting. He was complaining about them missing out on celebrating with me because of my mom. I told him it was because of his affair and not my mom, that he was the one who betrayed her over and over again, disrespected her, and then expected her to act like none of that happened so he could act like the good guy. He told me it had been a decade and my mom and I should be over it. I should not have taken sides. I told him he should have kept the affair from me then instead of letting it come out for me to hear. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. Your dad has some audacity. Oh, I cheated on you with your friend. Now take in my 6 kids with you. Why do you even still speak to this guy? OP. Mostly because my mom has encouraged it up until now. But since turning 18, I have considered dropping the rope and having nothing to do with them. I can't say I enjoy having them in my life. It was just one of those things you do because it's expected. For the most part, I am over that. Fire my boss? Hide millions from your client? I don't think so. This happened a while ago, but it's still so fresh in my mind. I left college with a business degree in one hand and no job in the other. And like so many colleges, the promises of alumni willing to give jobs to graduates could not have been further from the truth. So I had to seek out my start from the bottom. I found a good job in operations at a company. I can't say who without giving it away. Had a great boss who taught me pretty much everything I needed to know. Work was great and the money was good. I need to explain how the business worked so you can understand how the plan worked. The corporate office was in California and we were not. There are a lot of things that went on at this company, and I can't get into all of them because it would just take away from the story. But let's just say they had a very Stratton Oakman vibe when it came to sales. I started out working in operations with some of the smaller clients, but with some help from my boss, was able to climb the ladder rather quickly to the point of being over all the operations and order processing for the firm. We had a very large client, 90% of the company's business. The way it worked was, we had 2 sets of sales reps, TSRs and CSRs. TSRs were the heavy hitters who reached out to the other big businesses and tech firms to extend their warranties on a product. They made real good money. The CSRs were more of the mom and pop crowd and the inbound sales calls for those that wanted to extend their warranties. The reps were all given codes that associates their clients' files with theirs, so if someone did a renewal automatically, they would get paid as it was their client. Pretty sweet gig. The client hired the firm to be the middleman for their B2B as they handled all of their everyday clients. For every $100 that came into our firm, 18% or $18 would be for the company and the rest would be sent to the clients with the warranties activated. Most of the clients paid by credit card or PO with a wire transfer, but there would also be a good amount of checks each week and would need to be processed. A little while after I started, the client check portion was now going to be overseen by one of the sales managers. Didn't really faze me because I was working on the smaller accounts. Since we were a publicly traded company, all the sales reps' orders had to go to operations to be fulfilled. They weren't allowed to process them on their own. This is when things started going downhill. My boss at the time was given temporary access to the financials as they were hiring a new CFO and he had a background with it. We went to lunch like we had done plenty of times before, but he seemed different. When I asked him if something was wrong, he told me that something looked off with our biggest client for one of the accounts. He wanted to make sure before he said anything to the higher-ups. While this was going on, I had been offered the chance to be our new compliance officer, which means I would need to make sure everything was on the up and up. Soon after, I come in to find out that my boss was just terminated for a multitude of reasons, all of which had to be untrue, because he was a pretty well-liked guy with not just the company, but with our clients as well. As I log into my terminal, I see that before he left, he had given me admin access to his files. Here's where things started to pop off. Remember those checks that clients were sending in to renew their warranties? Well, we were cashing them all right. Apparently, we just weren't adding those renewals to their products in the system. That would have triggered a payout to our client who, as you remember, would be getting 82% of that money. Instead, they were cashing the checks, keeping the money, and using the interest in the accounts. Yes, in the mid-2000s, banks actually paid interest to cover losses in their collections department. It was wild to see that this was happening and something had to be done. So I hatched a plan. First things first, secure a new job, because it won't be a fun place to work after this. Done. My previous boss knew of other companies that would scoop me up. Put in my notice and stated in my exit interview that I just couldn't be a part of what was happening, even though HR was in on this. I wanted it on the record. Next, get approval for overtime for all operations crew to come in on a Saturday and double pay them. They arrive early Saturday, obviously not too thrilled as to why they are there. But then I explain that if they complete the task, not only do they get their overtime, but they get nice bonuses. They were much happier. They spent the entire day applying all of those checks dated back years to the client accounts. We're talking millions of dollars. When all of the sales reps arrived Monday, they were shocked as heck. Not only did they meet their weekly goals before picking up the phones, they made their monthly and quarterly goals too. 2 weeks into the new quarter. Cheers, partying, yelling, screaming, celebrating, except sales management. They went from being really excited to skeptical to confused to, oh no, in about 2 hours. They realized where it must have came from. Because not only did the company hit all of these sales, since it had been over a day, the client came into work Monday to see a very nice payday in their system as well. And like anyone, would have questions and says they're coming out to congratulate the team on such great numbers. So management starts scrambling because they can't figure out how this happened, and all under my boss's old login. On my last day, I arrive and in the lobby. I've got my box ready for the last of my things. Guy walks up as we're waiting for the elevator and he strikes up a conversation with me. He notices my box and jokes about getting fired, and I just tell him I had a great opportunity come up, so I decided to leave before crap hits the fan. We laughed. Really nice down-to-earth guy. He realizes we're getting off on the same floor. He asks if I work for X. I say yes. He asks where. I tell him operations, and he reveals that he is the CEO of our client. We go our separate ways. Client shows up and there's a big party. Afterwards, the client says that they would love to get a breakdown of where most of the sales came from, so they can allocate more money to that department. Management says sure, but it made up a lie about how they can't share client payment info due to regulations, blah blah blah. Cue my exit from the company. 2 weeks go by and I get a phone call from a number I don't recognize, so I let it go to voicemail. When I get off work, I checked it to find out it was the CEO of the client where I used to work. He has had something come up and would like to talk to me. Of course, I'm nervous as heck, but I call him back and he picks up on the first ring and we get to chatting for a bit, and he finally just asks me, "Why did you leave?" I tell him I had a great opportunity come up. He doesn't buy it and says that apparently my comment about crap hitting the fan really stuck with him and he thinks something more is going on. So after a little more prodding from him, I tell him, "Just look at collections," and that's all I can say. He thanks me and I hang up. 2 days later, he pulled the plug on the account. Apparently, my old company tried to threaten him with a lawsuit for pulling the account 3 years early. He replied with, "That's fine, because when I show the courts that I have the evidence that you committed fraud," corporate came in and cleaned house. All of the management was fired within the day. 1 month later, my friend and I had a very memorable trip to Vegas, all courtesy of our old client. Epilogue. Best part. I guess this should have been part of the story. My old boss was an adopted kid, treated his adopted parents great, while their real kids didn't, and when they passed, they left him all of their money. All of it. This was about 2008. He was in a weird place because he loved his parents and was really close to them. He went to his church to pray for his parents and for what to do with his new landfall of money. He loved working but didn't need to anymore. He left the church and went to a bar because, who doesn't? He sits next to a guy who, and this is almost out of a movie, is a developer and has run out of money to finish his development because it's 2008 and no one is loaning money. They get to talking and he thinks maybe this is a sign. I'll speed this up because I've got to run to work, but he invests in the guy's development by buying all of the houses, dirt cheap at the time, and now lives off the residual income from all of them being rentals. Life sucks because so many people do crappy things and get away with it, and it's great when good things happen to good people.
Huge shout out to Eggshell, who left us a review on iTunes saying, "I love all the stories. It's especially amazing I can listen to it with my phone off. It saves a ton of battery. I also find it funny when his voice starts breaking because he's trying not to laugh."
Thank you so much for leaving us the great review. It really helps out the show.
Come leave us a review and you'll see it in an upcoming video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.